in the London Derby against West Ham at home on Sunday. Nedum, do you think they will finish top 4? What's your view on the top 4 race now behind the top 3 that we mentioned in the first segment?
Initially, I never thought it would be a top 3 plus 1 because it seemed like Newcastle were very much, just pulling up trees as well. But they have slowed down a little bit. And Spurs being in there, Newcastle have a game in hand. I think this game against Man United in the League Cup on the weekend could be key because if they win that, I think that's a big boost. If they lose it, I think that could be like one of the first like dagger blows of their whole season.
I agree.
But then there are also teams behind. You look at Brighton, who aren't a million miles away. You look at Liverpool, who are starting to just climb up the league just little by little.
Liverpool could do it.
Yeah, but then also, for context, the first half in that game against West Ham was one of the worst 45s of the whole game week. You know,
but we've seen them being that bad earlier before this season.
And you've got Bentancur out, you've got a few other players missing, but they're in there now. So you've got to say at some point. And also, I need to. This I'm so happy I'm on the show today. So yesterday on FC, I made a mistake and I was talking about Spurs being in the Conference League. It's like I went back in the time machine to a year ago. So I'd like to address that now.
Why would you think that they were in the Conference
It's just because it's Spurs. Even though I watched them against AC Milan a few days earlier, my brain left my body.
Oh, it's okay.
So this is my chance to correct it. I've corrected it. I know you're in the Champions League. I watched the game itself. And so my credit is I think you're in fourth now. Obviously, some injuries are going to sort of lower your ceiling.
Yeah.
But I think Liverpool will have to do particularly well to catch you, and I think they're capable. But as it stands, I think you've got to go with Spurs as favourites for that 4th position.
You know, on Sunday they play Chelsea at home, Spurs.
Will Chelsea score a goal, though?
Will Spurs be as bad as they were in the first hour against West Ham?
We're supposed to be selling this game as being a classic. You should definitely all watch this game because it's going to be another magnificent London derby. Okay.
Roberto De Zerbi was not happy with the referee and VAR on Saturday again. Nedum after Brighton. The Brighton game against Fulham and the defeat. He said he wasted 2 hours listening to Howard Webb talking to him about referees and VAR earlier in the week. Did he have a point?
I think he has a point because I think what he was trying to say was that his issue with the refereeing was the attitude of the referees.
Yeah, which looked bad again.
Yeah,
it's not the first time.
It's the attitude of the referees, but every referee is different. They approach games in different ways. And the decisions, you might think that, you know, they're all going to say the same thing, but sometimes they don't. And the way in which they discuss it afterwards is what can really upset you. And I think for this match itself against Fulham, they had the vast majority of the chances. Yeah. They controlled the game, it looked like. So then to lose 1-0 at home is frustrating as well. Yeah. So everything, it's like the perfect storm to just be really unhappy at football.
You must be so frustrated.
I know. And, you know, you can talk to Howard Webb, but Howard Webb's not the one that's refereeing the game on the weekend.
I know.
You know, Howard Webb's good guy, good spokesperson, will try and represent them all. But every referee's so different that whatever he says might make sense for one guy, but maybe not for the 10 others. So De Zerbi's... he's one of many people who doesn't necessarily love referees overall in their attitudes, but I'd imagine most referees don't love our attitudes out there on the field either.
Do you know what I like?
A bit edgy.
Because obviously there was a bit of contentious decision on Veltman and the penalty, but Veltman came afterwards and said, you know, I kind of tried to get it, but it was the right decision. It was not a foul. Well done to the referee, and I think that's good for the game as well.
It's good for the game if everybody hears it.
Yeah, true.
But that's the thing. Sometimes some things are said, and very few people hear it because you don't want to hear it. You're wrong. Like you feel the outrage of, say, for example, the decision. We should have had that. We should have had that. And someone says, "Oh, Veltman's." No, he didn't. No, he's wrong. Veltman's wrong. He didn't. It was definitely a penalty at the moment.
Lee Mason has retired from being a VAR referee after his mistakes in the Arsenal game, and I think his mistakes through the whole season, to be fair. Wise choice. Well done, Lee Mason. Well done.
Sorry, is this a question or a statement for Julien Laurent?
Don Hutchinson last week said he should go. He should be sacked. I don't think they can sack him.
Lo and behold here, we're in a position whereby we have the emotion of football, and then we have the human side. And like, I've been very guilty myself of being a bit too forceful with Lee Mason in the past. Like, I've had a few bookings from him and I've really, really gotten into his face about it. Really, very much so.
But rightly so or not?
For me, of course. Like, if you were to look at, if you were to somehow Google my name and Lee Mason, and then look at images,
no way, I'm going to do that.
There's a lot of aggression in there. But I think with him, it's not to say that he's a bad referee, but he's got one of those roles, as is like a goalkeeper, where you can't afford to make mistakes because it will affect your credibility. And if he's going to be in a VAR booth after what happened in that game where everyone knows that he made a mistake, people will be unhappy to see their face.
Yes, true.
That's a very, very tough standard for anyone to have as a job. So I think given how big that blunder was, I think he's made the right decision because he was
agree.
never to be trusted. And if you're not trusted by the audience, then there's no point in you being there.
And probably not by Howard Webb and the people above you.
Yeah, so it's like I don't think he would have necessarily been sacked.
Yeah.
But I think he's wise enough to understand because he's been around for a long time that you don't want to be the guy where your name's basically being dragged through the mud. As you've said yourself and Don, like people think that you're no good. So there's no way as a referee to get back your reputation because they're always waiting for that one mistake. You could have a perfect game. Be like, well, next time this is going to do a blunder because that's what he does.
Yeah.
So I think his credibility is
gone.
gone.
In France, for Ligue 1, one of the sponsors is a fast food chain. And one of the advert is that the ref is calling for VR, the people in the VR room. And they're not there because they're eating the burgers, the fast food. And my kid said that's Lee Mason. When the men ref saying, Lee, what's the line? Is the offside and he's eating his burgers?
That's the thing, this is where like there's such a split. Like I know that I love it when people get the jokes off, but then Lee Mason's probably just like, all right, guy.
I know, I'm sorry, Lee Mason.
No, you're not sorry though.
I'm not really sorry.
You're not really sorry.
I'm glad you're gone.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.